I've been hearing like Trevor Zegras to the Habs rumors for the last few months.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, right. So I wanted to get your opinion on that. So
Yeah, it's interesting with Zegers too because you're hearing so many opinions on it now. So now you're kind of starting to wonder if he'd be a good fit and whatnot. And I mean, certainly the Canadians are going to do their research if there's even an opportunity to acquire him because what's it going to cost? That's the ultimate thing, right? He's still under contract for, or is his deal up this year? I think he has one more year on his deal. I could be wrong
I
because he's
think
on a bridge deal right now.
yeah, he might be on a bridge deal. Actually,
I'll pull it up here
I'm
while we're chatting,
pretty
but
sure in the offseason, right before he was done his entry level deal, and they were having trouble like agreeing on money and term, I think, because I think obviously he
right.
wanted long term, and they obviously went with the bridge deal instead. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was something along the lines of that.
Let me just yeah, I
Yeah,
just pulled it up on Cap Friendly just so we know.
sure.
But yeah, he's signed until 25, 26. So I mean,
Okay.
he's still under contract for 5.75 million
Wow.
until so basically after this season, he's got two more years left on his deal and he's still an RFA in 2026. So 5.75 left on his deal. He's 22 years old. I mean, you have to be interested, I think, in terms of the talent level. I think he's somebody that, like, I mean, what player can't come in, what young player at this point, unless your ego is just the size of Mars, can't come in and work under Marty St. Louis and learn from him. With Cole Caulfield being one of his good buddies, I mean, how has Cole not already been texting him and just being like, hey man, like if you ever do come over here, by the way, like you're gonna love working with Marty and you should listen to him. So uh I think
Yeah.
that the idea of bringing in a player like Zekers, I don't know fully what that would look like yet, just because he's still pretty young. Whereas if you bring in someone like a more established talent, like the only other player that I looked at, by the way, like in terms of free agents the next few years, that actually kind of would get me excited, would be Kirill Kaprizov,
Oh, yeah.
and he's a free agent not until 2026. But I mean, he's the star of the Minnesota Wild. So I mean, I can't see Bill Guerin not trying to extend him a year before his contract's up, which would be, I guess, next summer he's eligible for an extension, I
Mm-hmm.
believe, in 2025. So um, he's getting 9 million a year right now, whereas Zegers is 5.75. So what I'm curious about, and I think this is why, in terms of the contract situation, you have to consider before we get to what the Canadians have to give up for him if they want to get him. I think that the contract isn't too bad right now. It's on a bridge deal. He's a 60-point player so far in his career. He can be. And in terms of defensively, I think that's where the biggest warts are in his game. Maybe the intensity, the effort level could use a big jump, maybe from his side of things based on the highlights I've watched. But he has a heck of a lot of talent. He would fit the Canadians mold pretty well by the looks of it in the top six with Nick Suzuki, Cole, Kirby Doc, Trevor Zegras, insert Alex Newhook, Slavkovsky. So their top six would definitely be stronger. Now it's just a matter of what is the cost, right? So I think that's where like you mentioned, there's some prospects that we'd be willing to part with, but at what level of prospect, right? Because, some people say, I don't really know what the Anaheim Ducks would be asking for sure, but if it begins with Caden Gooley, that's a tough one. If it begins with Arbor Jackeye, that's a tough one. But those are the kinds of players they're going to be asking for, if that's the case. If that's the case, right? So, I should have brought water, by the way. Give me a minute. Sorry.
All good. No
Um,
worries.
but I remember when we were interested in Jack Eichel at one point, and that was going to start with like Nick Suzuki or Cole Caulfield. And those were non-starters for Bergevin. It was like,
Mhm.
yeah, you're not getting either of these guys, so we're out on Jack Eichel, like that, and that worked out probably for the best anyway. He's
Totally.
injury prone, and he got a Stanley Cup already, so it's a win-win for well, it's a win for the Vegas Gold Knights at this point. But in terms of Zegras, I don't know because I just don't know enough about him as a person, as a player. I know a little bit. I see the talent level,
Mhm.
but you have to listen on it. It's just a matter of what's it going to cost you, and is he really going to be a fit with the Canadians? Because if you bring him over here, there's no way that they're going to necessarily not want to keep. They have to think long term because if you give up an asset that's a big deal, what have you, then you're going to want to keep Trevor Zegras long term if you're going to give up something that's going to cost you, because it's going to cost you. It's probably going to hurt to get a player like Trevor Zegras because you're going to have to give up a player that you probably would rather not.
Hmm.
So I don't
Agreed.
know is my answer, I guess. I don't know
Yeah,
because I don't know what the cost is yet. So that's why I'm leaving it to Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton to figure that one out.
agreed. Yeah, like it'll definitely be like a top prospect or young player per se in the system, in the prospect pool or even on the current roster. My concerns with Zegras, like I'm like, I don't know. I think some people would agree with me now. I think 3 years ago, people would have disagreed, but I think he's a little bit overrated. I just think
Mhm.
again, defensively, he is like a liability. And I think just all he does, he does his Michigans and his like trick shots. I feel like he's just like a Harlem Globetrotter version of an NHL player, right? So, but that's my concerns. Like I liked him when he kind of like came into the league like 3 years ago, and he was like changing the game in that way. But now I look at it, I'm like, yeah, maybe the intensity level isn't there.
It's gonna have to change.
Eh,
Like, yeah.
for
So
sure,
if he
for
comes
sure.
over here, he's gonna have to change the way he plays, and
Agreed.
he's gonna have to get better defensively because that's a big part of what Marty St. Louis is trying to teach the Canadians is how to play without the puck.
Yeah.
So if he's willing to come in and listen to Marty, like I mentioned, the whole thing with Cole, like
Hmm.
if he's willing to come in and he's young enough that he can make those changes though. So
Agreed. Yeah.
his talent will take care of itself, but it's a matter of how do you become a more well-rounded player like Cole Caulfield's becoming, like Nick Suzuki's becoming, like Slavkovsky's going to become, like a lot of these, if not all, the Canadians players are going to try to learn how to play without the puck. And then when you have it, then you kind of work on the fun stuff, the offense, right?
Hmm.
So I think he's young enough that he could definitely adapt to the Marty St. Louis way of doing things. That's not my concern. It's more of what's it going to cost the Canadians? Is it worth it? Is he part of the long-term solution? I just don't know that I see that he's the answer and the only answer right now. But there's not that
Hmm.
many options that I can see where there's young talent available like him. So I'm open to it. I just want to know, and I think that everyone wants to know that's going to make sense and hopefully not cost the Canadians more than they should have to pay.